We are live for the news review segment on the AM show. Benjamin says I'm in red because Kwabutre won, but that's not it. But I'm celebrating with them, although I was tipping for Keta. Let me introduce my guest to you. Let me start from the birthday. I'm tempted to say birthday boy, but I can't say that now. It's birthday man. Mr. Felmoni, former GJA president, who just celebrated his birthday on Monday. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And then we also have Kwame Nkrumah Botio, the General Secretary.
I like the name.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome, both
you.
of you. But Mr. Moni, I do want to pick your thoughts on something. I'm not sure if you want to tell our audience how old, the age you turned on Monday, but I'd like you to share two values that you've learned all these years in your various roles, GJA president and all the other things that you've done before in your life. Two things that you share as your just two tips for wisdom or value, something valuable you've learned in this life.
Number one, life is not a race. You should take it easy. And once you pin your hope in God,
Life is not a race.
Yeah, He will order your steps. And you do things in moderation. People are addicted to going to the extreme in whatever they do. I believe in, in moderation. Moderate in what I eat, moderate in what I do, moderate in what I say.
Yeah.
And don't be in a hurry to dance to anybody's tune or to please anybody. My only focus is to please God. Even when I falter, I believe He will raise him up.
Yeah.
So these are some of the values my children and grandchildren have imbibed. And there's a common thread which runs through them: meekness, respect for authority, elderly. And wherever they are not noisy, but they allow their value to speak for them. So these are something I think I need to share with.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So life is not a race.
Life is not a race.
Everything in moderation.
Yes, everything in moderation.
Thank you so
Don't
much.
dance to anybody's tune.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Kwame Nkrumah Botio.
Yes, sweetie.
What's on your mind this morning?
Well, on my mind is, top of my mind is the sad news about the demise of our own Auntie Ikuadonko.
Yeah.
It's really hit hard. It's really hit hard. I mean, she's one of the only two women on the ballot. And the day that our candidate, Nana Akosua from Sapon Kumankuma, was submitting her forms, we actually took a picture with Madam Ikuadonko, and we dubbed them the women who dared. The women who dared. It is not an easy road to get to that stage. And she was a very courageous woman who taught all of us to reach for the stars. And her death should be an inspiration to all of us, both male and female, that nothing should stop you, no matter your educational background, no matter the taunts people throw at you. I mean, there were times where I was even by her, various videos went around, but she still stood her ground, and she'll be missed sorely.
Thank you for those encouraging words. We are all standing in solidarity with the families and the party.
Yeah, it's a national loss.
Anyway, Mr. Moni, do you have some quick reflection about 30 seconds? Should we go straight into the papers?
I think I need to touch on an issue which should captivate the attention of well-meaning Ghanaians, especially political watchers. And this is relative to the exchange of verbal stones between Dr. Bawumia and His Excellency, former President Mahama. These exchanges are growing in intensity and ferocity. And we can spell something else. And in other parts of the world, specifically in America, such exchanges pale virtually into nothingness as compared with the brazen and brutal attacks by Trump and Kamala Harris. But in a part of the world, we should be concerned because their culture is totally different from ours. They practice democracy for 3 centuries now, more. We are toddlers as far as democracy is concerned.
Yeah.
Even though we pride ourselves on the fact that for 8 years on the trot, we have voted, and on 2 occasions, power has changed hands. But we should never be intoxicated by this feat, no matter how narcotic the feeling might be. So, elections, every election induces its own tensions. But if you allow tension to exceed certain limit, it can crystallize in something else. So His Excellency Mahama and Bawumia, please be measured in your pronouncement, in attacking each other. Once, their supporters, act based on what their leaders say or do. It's so magnetic.
Yeah.
So they should be measured in attacking each other. Meanwhile, there's so many things which are relatable, which should be relatable to the electorate, which should resonate with the electorate. Cost of living crisis, even our economy is on a rebound.
Okay.
But this does not obscure the fact that we still facing some crisis, highly difficult living circumstances, which we need to tackle. SHS, fantastic idea. No, nothing beats it apart from independence. We need to improve the quality of education both at the basic and the senior secondary school level.
So we all want the same thing. So
we all want the same thing.
The attack they should look at it, because supporters who act on their words.
Yeah.
And in the end, they will be safe, but we, the citizens, the young people, will be the ones who pick up arms and go and be fighting.
Absolutely.
And all that.
Absolutely.
Wise words. Thank you so much, Mr. Moni. So let's review the newspapers. I'll start with the Ghanaian Times newspaper. On the front page, we need fair, firm election policing, according to Vice President and flag bearer of the NPP, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. And he said this at the 53rd Cadet Officers graduation. Cerebral palsy, autism, suffers targets of sexual abuse in Achimtafo. That's an interesting one I want to get into. And of course, on the Boko conflict, this Chief Justice orders closure of 7 courts in Upper East Region. This is the Ghanaian Times newspaper. And then 160,000 persons living with HIV on antiretroviral treatment, according to Dr. Ado. Let's start with this story about cerebral palsy, and I'll just quickly run through the entire paper before I come to you, gentlemen. Cerebral palsy, says some women and young girls living with cerebral palsy, autism, and other forms of disabilities at Achimtafo in the Ebuakwa North municipality of the Eastern region have become targets of sexual abuse, the Ghanaian Times investigations have reviewed. Now, most of the men who perpetrate this, should I say, horrible acts within the community most often deploy coercion or financial inducement as bait to get their victims. And in addition, those who fall victim to the abuse are quote, bribed not to disclose the identity of the attackers, or in some cases are threatened with not to disclose their predicaments to anyone. And these are people living with some conditions. This is terrible. Let me quickly run through the papers before I come to you. GFP asked to nominate new presidential candidates. We're just talking about the passing of Ekuadonko. So the party is getting ready to present somebody else as the flag bearer. So there will be no elections and there will not be reballoting, nothing of the sort. Fatal decisions.
So what about if the running mate refuses to contest? I've heard him say that he will contest, but people can prevail upon him for whatever reasons not to contest, in order to bring some disorder on the ballot box.
In that case, that would mean we have to reballot. Or they just push it out. I don't know how the EC
I don't know how it will work out.
Deal with this.
But meanwhile, NDC has voiced its strong resistance to any attempt to push them from number 8.
Yeah, that's true. I'll come to you. I'll circle back to you in a bit. Increasing consumption of flavonoid-rich foods, a key anti-cancer approach. 160,000 persons living with HIV on antiretroviral treatment. ADBMD is Public Sector CEO of the Year. EU co-funded project on post-harvest losses ends. We need fair election policing. So that's from Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Government committed to building effective early warning systems, says the Communications Minister. And Alakpele Dufia urges government to dredge Keta Lagoon. 5,247 students received degrees, diplomas from UPSA. On the back page, answer questions posed to you. Mahama to Bawumia. And volunteers tasked to prioritize community-driven projects. This is also an editorial. So these are the stories here in the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Which of these, gentlemen, do you want to get into? I know you already started with the reballoting, possibility of reballoting or presentation of a new flag bearer from the GFP. But any of these stories you want to get into at the moment? Or should I come to Kwame Nkrumah?
Yes,
Kwame Nkrumah.
Yes.
Osajefo. Which of these stories?
I want that a non-political story, the early warning system by the Communications Minister.
Yeah.
I think it's a step in the right direction. We want to hear more of such. In the political season, a lot of what is equally important seems to be drowned out by all this political fever all around us. Early warning systems are important everywhere. And even a case in point, you have the floods in Spain. It was apparently raining in another town, and then a neighboring town was inundated with water. And even with the recent hurricanes in the USA and all that. So when we have these early warning systems, it will help save a lot of lives. And we do need to keep up with these things that affect the ordinary man on the ground.
Yeah. Because
June 3rd is not something that is so far away. It was just a few years ago. We need to implement more of these things. And secondly, to another social interest stories, the volunteers to focus on community-driven projects. I think currently everything in our system is geared towards the macro economy, macro development. We don't tackle things on the ground. Even the statistics, we look at the general statistics of the economy regarding the whole country. I think we should pay attention to these community-driven projects. Otherwise, we tend to lose the comparative advantage that our various communities have. We have certain policies that we implement across board, but sometimes the policy that will benefit a place like, let's say, I don't want to mention names, but a policy that will benefit a slum, that same policy will not benefit a place like Trazako. A policy that will benefit Trazako will not benefit a slum. Therefore, when we have these community-driven projects, especially backed by volunteers, we will be able to harness the various comparative advantages that our various communities have. And when we bring all that together, we'll be able to move the nation forward. And it ties in with the massive decentralization agenda that was under the... Of course, decentralization has been throughout, but I think that there was a lot of impact on it at a point during the PNDC era.
Okay.
And we should go back to that. And I think they took that from the CPP era of old, where there was concentration on voluntarism. You had the youth brigade, you had all these things. And I'm an ardent supporter of voluntarism. I remember during my national service days in 2004, there was this organization called, I think it was Voluntary Services Organization, where you were allowed to volunteer even beyond national service. And that was also the year that the Kufuor administration brought in a 2-year voluntary national service. And even after my national service, I did apply for that. If we're able to go back to those days of voluntarism, patriotism, and decentralize it down to our local areas, the country will move forward. That is how I believe the developed countries also move forward. You do things out of your heart for your country, and then we'll be able to move forward. And then we also come to Mahama's 5 questions to Bawumia. And Bawumia also, I think, gave honorable, I mean, His Excellency Bawumia, His Excellency Mahama, I have to give them the due respect. His Excellency Bawumia also threw, I think, 127 questions previously. I think they should direct some of these questions to the other candidates, especially the CPP candidate, who is poised to answer these 5 questions perfectly. Nana Akosua from Mpama Sapon, Komankoma, an entrepreneur in her own right, a very strong woman.
Why do you think they're not posing these questions to her? Why do you have to ask that they ask her these questions? Because
it goes back to what the birthday man said.
Yeah.
It is getting a bit too personal between NDC and NPP. It should be about a development agenda. Throw it out there. My fellow candidates, what do you have to say about this? How can we move the nation forward? Then you listen to their answers, and then you propose yours that is meant to do better than theirs. It's about moving the nation forward. But we are rather looking at how to pull down other candidates. As is said in legal parlance, you win a case based on the strength of your own case and not on the weakness of your opponent's case. So let's stop dwelling on the weaknesses of the other candidates and where they have failed, and dwell on the strengths. Bring these 5 questions, I think, are amazing questions. I think they are very relevant questions. Through them, let all the candidates give their feedback on it. And even Joy can organize their own debate. Invite the presidential candidates. That is how
sure they'll debate?
They will debate.
I hear debates. What happened to that? But well, this is where we are. We know that some of the flag bearers said they will not debate.
They will not debate.
Debating their
opponents. Well, for those who don't want to debate, that is fine. But I think a debate will help the Ghanaian electorate. And if Joy organizes such a debate for all the 12 candidates, it's now 12. For all the 12, whoever does not show up, then the Ghanaian electorate knows that this person does not have anything to offer the country.
I think going forward, we should make the debate a culture of our electoral process.
Yes.
Once it is in there, enshrined, either in our laws or in our culture, I believe all the candidates will be obliged to debate each other.
So it's no longer optional.
Yes, because now it's about loud music and T-shirts and posters, and that is what seems to win elections. But should it be so?
It should be.
But a lot of discerning Ghanaians who will not be moved by the loud music.
Absolutely.
But they seem to be in the minority.
Insults.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe they will decide on election day.
But you know, there's a history to this. This back and forth questioning, 170 questions, it's coming all the way from 2016. So don't feel bad that, you know, your flag bearer has been left out. But it makes sense that you're asking that this should be a national issue. The question should be posed to all those who seek that mandate to be president. Right? So, yeah, absolutely. But I do want to just pick your thoughts, Mr. Moni, on this cerebral palsy and autism sufferers who are now a target of sexual abuse in Ashimtafo. I think this is bizarre. This is I don't know the word to use for it, because it's just so sickening to think that these people are being targeted as victims of sexual abuse, and they're threatening their lives that they shouldn't speak up. What do you make of this?
This is wickedness on the part of the perpetrators, wickedness in its most naked nastiness. So the perpetrators, I believe they are out of their minds, because no sane human being will descend to that level to commit that crime. So they should have their heads examined, because nobody, it's outrageous, unthinkable, incredible. So first of all, they should be made to face the biting edge of the law once they find themselves on the other side of the law, because ours is a society governed by the rule of law. So the law should bite them, and bite them hard. And this will serve as a warning to all those who take advantage of
And I think the victim should also be bold enough to speak up. It's the only way that we would, you know, find those culpable and let them face the music of justice. But if they're not speaking up and they're protecting these perpetrators?
Some of them are
criminals.
so disabled to speak out, given their circumstances. So society should rally to their aid to help deal surgically with the perpetrators.
Okay. Someone, let's do your papers now.
One story which is trending, MP's vacancies. See, Chief Justice throws out Speaker's...
I believe that's the Daily Guide newspaper.
That's the Daily Guide, and the Supreme Court yesterday dismissed an application by the Speaker of Parliament, Albert Bagwin, urging it to reverse its decision to issue an interlocutory injunction against his declaration of 4 seats vacant in Parliament. A 5-member panel of the court, presided over by the CJ, held that the court's earlier decision was lawful, as the court had jurisdiction to issue a judicial review against any individual or arm of government, including Parliament, as guaranteed by the 1992 Constitution.
Yeah.
Well said by the CJ. At least there should be a final authority when it comes to such matters. But our prayer and our demand is that such authority should be rooted in law, and then should be, whatever decision any arm of government takes should be done with utmost sensitivity and responsibility. The fact that you are an embodiment of the presidency, or the embodiment of lawmaking, or the embodiment of law...
Democracy even.
Democracy. So this is a time for us to think and think hard on how best to safeguard our democracy and to ensure we do not at all slip into the gutter we found ourselves in yesteryears when democracy was overthrown, that is, some reason was overthrown, and then a military dictatorship took over. We should not give anybody any excuse to attempt to derail the progress we are making as a democratic state. Even if we are told that our democratic balance strikes, some cause of concern. If you look at Afrobarometer reports, people are losing confidence in our state institutions. In judiciary, trust is on the wane. Suspicion of partisan partiality is on the rise.
In fact, which is one of the reasons that the Speaker's lawyer, I think, wanted the judge, Judge Yao, to recuse himself because he's affiliated to the NPP. I mean, how did we even get here? Where a known member of a political party sits on a case that involves, parliamentary business, where it's obviously a tussle between NDC and NPP. It was very weird for me to...
Now, this was also preceded by the appointment of the General Secretary of the PNC onto the Supreme Court. So this is a time for us to do some constitutional engineering, and then to ensure that nobody with partisan colors will qualify to be on the Supreme Court. The Bible, which is infallible guide of conduct, teaches us that everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial.
Yeah.
It is legally permissible to appoint politically tainted personalities onto the Supreme Court. But what will be the benefit? So we are reaping as a nation the backlash of appointing such people. We are eroding the confidence in the judiciary, and this can spell disaster of incalculable proportions on this nation.
Thank you, Mr. Moni. We have 11 days to see how the Supreme Court rules on this matter. They say
the verdict is as clear as
11 November, but
nice following day. It's as clear as that.
We wait to see.
Yes.
Mr. Nkrumah.
To add to that, I would say that, of course, under the law, there's what you call perception of bias, and there's also actual bias. And sometimes you have to look closely at the utterance of a judicial officer to know whether there's a perception of bias or there's actual bias. And you're actually entitled to reliefs if you can pinpoint that there is perception of bias or actual bias. And you can also bring up the issue of a judicial officer recusing themselves because you believe that there may be actual bias in their ruling. However, in all honesty, as a legal practitioner who's appeared before the apex court of the land a few times, I have never had reason to feel that the past political activity of any judicial officer presently, at least in the past few years, has colored their judgments. Sometimes there are other issues that may come into play. And there have been Supreme Court rulings that have been reversed because one legal practitioner or the other was able to show that there was a perception of bias or actual bias. Yeah. So there are times when these reversals have been done. There was one land case which had a chieftaincy aspect. Right. And the legal practitioner on the other side, I'm not mentioning his name.
And you wrap on this point for me so we get
okay. May he rest in peace. He was able to point out actual bias against one judicial officer, and the ruling was reversed. So I think Ghanaians should be rest assured that if there's any untoward happening, the Supreme Court will indeed take action.
But
they've taken action.
I mean, you raise the issue of
in the Supreme Court
of perception. Yes. And there's the line between perception and reality is razor thin.
Yes, yes, that is true. But I, for example, as General Secretary of the Convention People's Party, if I was to become a judge one day, and I mean, you've interacted with me for a while, I don't think that just by virtue of my once being General Secretary, you would feel that may disqualify me from being a judge or sitting on certain cases regarding politics. Okay. Because if I give a ruling that is not in that line, you can always come for relief to have
so
it.
Kwame, can just imagine a very known die-hard Kotoko supporter refereeing a match between House and Kotoko.
That's the problem. I mean, it is problematic.
Yes, yes.
Problematic.
If it's just a perception of bias, it doesn't all go well for us because the judicial system needs people, citizens, to trust that they will be able to do what's right in the interest of us, the people. Yeah. And if you see somebody, well, we are pressed
and the points you always be, the points can hardly be articulated.
Yeah.
That's a critical element of rule of law is confidence in the law. So once confidence is eroded, then we head towards something.
We can't inspire confidence by playing partisan or politicizing our judicial system. Yeah. Anyway, let's get into your paper because we are pressed for time.
So
no, your newspaper.
Yes, yes. There's one story that a few stories. There's one here by Absas Kobla Nyaliti on how the banks should support young businesses to reach global standards. And,
is this the political analyst?
No, he's
no,
this,
what paper
yes,
is that?
This is the business analyst. The business analyst. And I think it's a step in the right direction. If you look at the talent we have in Ghana, a lot of the youth, they have great ideas. I mean, Silicon level standard ideas, but they do not have access to funding. So I think this is a step in the right direction. And if the other banks are listening to what the ABSA executive director is saying, they should take it on. Because if you have a nation where the youth are empowered economically, they will not have time to, be foot soldiers for the political parties. And I think this is a problem that a lot of the developing countries have. Because of financial issues, that is why we have a lot of our instability. Okay. A lot of what is happening in the Upper East and all that, if the youth were financially empowered, they wouldn't have time to be fighting certain battles. And to rope it into, I also want to congratulate Mr. Alaji Alasan Yakubu Tali of ADB. He's also doing a good job.
Yeah,
I think our banks are doing a good job, and they should remember the youth. They should give them access to credit. I think our pension funds too are moving in the right direction. The Ghana insurance industry records 22% growth in investment assets. You know, when the economy goes well, everything else falls into place most of the time. That is what we see in the developed countries and other places. Yes.
Mr. Money, you have the final word in about 30 seconds. If you want to get into a story or give me a wrap of your thoughts, we have to go.
VIB commended the IGP. Let me also seize the opportunity to sprinkle a good dance of commendation on IGP. His reforms exemplified, and we need to encourage him. But more will depend on him relative to election 2024. His men should not, they should dare not fail this nation, because tensions are high, the stakes incredible. So his men should be professional in dealing with potential perpetrators of violence. They should deal with them squarely. They should hide their partisan biases. You know, some of them, whether this is a known fact, when the NDC is in power, they push their men into the police. MPP does the same. But please, for the sake of Ghana, this is a time for all to subordinate our partisan interests to the supreme national interest. And the supreme national interest, contextually, is peace, stability, and development in freedom.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. That there is Mr. Afel-Moni, former GJA president, and we also have Kwame Nkrumah Botsio, general secretary of the CPP.
Like Kwame Nkrumah Botsio.
Botsio. Well, thank you for joining us for News Review.
Thank you,
we do have to go, but do stay for sports coming up next with Mumbarak Haruna.